All right, party people. Shabba-ba-da-bay. Ladies and gentlemen, what's happening? We are live. Welcome to the live stream. Yet another week. Fingers crossed. I have done some minor tweaks. Fingers crossed that my computer doesn't explode. But chances are high because I haven't really done a whole big overhaul that the process isn't going to work and this whole thing's going to shit itself again. But fingers crossed that it does not. So, how are you? Welcome to the studio. Well, what do we got? I got Tech Scout tomorrow, and we're going to try something different today. We are going to try, I know a lot of the times you guys send in stuff and we're going to look at some of your projects and look at the lighting, but we're not going to do that today. In fact, I just had a change of heart. I thought this would be kind of fun, and it would make sense to do it in the Patreon group because I know it's a closed group and it's not published to the masses, so we can do something a little bit different, a little bit behind the scenes. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm doing a job. I've got storyboards for that job, and I've got minimal location stills that I can show, but I haven't shot the job yet. I'm just going over in my head because I have to do it, because I've got the Tech Scout tomorrow. And because I've got the Tech Scout, I need a plan to communicate with everyone else. So I'm going to be looking at some of the storyboards, and we'll look at the location photos, and I'll just talk about what I'm going to do. And we'll see whether or not that's any good. And the chances are I'll probably take it down 24 hours from now because I violated something or something. So now, if you are new to the live stream, please use the YouTube chat. That's where I'm going to be able to see everybody's comments. So use that instead of using the Patreon thing where I get this email message. And today, I think, tell me whether or not this is a good idea. But in the actual screen recording, which you should be looking at now, hello, you see everybody here. You can see the comments. And then they live forever. Rather, as opposed to before, when I would get rid of the video, the chat would sort of die. So this way, everybody's name and every comment, if you tell me I'm a bag of shit, it will live on in infamy. So I think this is a better solution for the moment. If you can hear my fan going on my computer, you know that's not a good sign. Anyway, all right, let's start with some questions first before I get to the prep. We're just going to go down the list, really. We got a few, some of them longer than others. Some we probably won't answer in this one. Okay. Would love to get some insight. This one's from Ethan S. Would love to get some insight on your thoughts on filtration, specifically lens diffusion. I've talked about this a few different times. I normally don't use any diffusion on the lens because I'm lazy. I haven't got through to testing it all. But I know, we've had guys on the podcast like Jeremy Rouse talk about he uses glimmer glass on every single job. And I bring that up because this job that I'm shooting is a lot of night interior inside bedrooms, and we need something unique, right? We're shooting on the XT, which we're shooting on now, and we are shooting on Master Primes, but framed for widescreen, and we want something a little bit different. So embracing Jeremy's look from, I don't know if you guys have seen his origin spot, but really beautiful commercial cinematography, and one of the reasons, besides the bullet ad, that I originally reached out to him all those years ago. So you can see in that origin ad, you can really see the effects of glimmer glass. It just creates this halo or this blooming in the highlights, and it looks really, really good on interiors and mixed colors interiors where you get the warm tungsten, but you get the cool blue. So that's what we're going to be trying to do on this job. So actually, I'm going to be using glimmer glass, and I had some tests of the effectiveness of glimmer glass on like a bare bulb, but I left them on the hard drive that is not here, so I don't have those tests. But maybe when we actually do the big podcast for the spot, I'll show some of those tests with how much blooming and how much highlight bloom do you want in your image. Really, that's what it comes down to with glimmer glass. There is a certain softening that happens definitely at the higher levels of glimmer glass, but if you're going with like an eighth or a quarter, you're generally pretty safe, even though a quarter is, well, I'll probably go with just an eighth, right? I'm a little bit of a anti-diffusion person, but a little bit goes a long way. So that'll probably be an eighth of diffusion of glimmer glass for this job, and that's just so you'll see once we get into the breakdown of the or the plan. Really, it's not a breakdown, is it? Until we shoot it, but yeah, that's the plan. Okay, now what do we got here? We got, hey Patrick, I was blah, 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 blah. This one's from Sergio. Interesting to hear about your journey. Yeah, I'll talk about that in another podcast or something. No time at the moment. Okay, when and why use glimmer glass, Clayton? I think we just nailed that, didn't we? We want a little bit of bloom. It just softens the contrast ever so slightly, especially in the highlights. But you really, the Alexa is sort of, there is something in the image in itself that does that, but this adds to the effect and it just blooms the highlights. And I think you'll see, because I'm going to show you a lot of the times you don't have to do lighting references for commercials. In fact, it's almost never. But in this particular case, the client asked for some lighting references to see exactly what the director and I had in mind, what we were going to be doing. I've got that because I literally just turned it in yesterday. And if you are an astute listener to the podcast, which I assume you are, you'll notice the format that I put these images in, because I've used it multiple times. It is my template, and you just drag and drop in InDesign, and I got it done in a matter of minutes. But I have a bunch of those reference images. Throw it in there, and you'll be able to see sort of the look, the tungsten-y, sort of bloomy highlight look. I think if you don't already know it, you'll recognize it by the end of that document. So that's when you want to use glimmer glass, or if you're Jeremy Rouse, you just use it all the time because you like the way it looks. Or like we had James on the show, what was that, 3 weeks ago? And he was talking about he just always uses a black Pro Mist. There are, the Pro Mist and the red really are the hot combination. Hot combination? What am I? Dipshit. Okay. This one is from Jesse. Would you create a video on your Lightroom process? I think I've already done that. I think somewhere, if you look in the Patreon section, I've already gone over the whole Lightroom process, which is pretty easy. I always just knock out the contrast a little bit. I try and get the Leica images to look just like what comes out of the Alexa. Really, that's the most pleasing. Knock out a little bit of the contrast, take down the highlights, take down the what do they call it, the whites, and add just a touch of clarity. That's pretty much all I do to every photo. So not much of a process there, but I'm pretty sure I did a video. If I didn't do it, let me know and I'll whip something up for the future. Okay, this one's from Aziz. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I was hired to shoot a TV show, and the production was aiming to shoot 15 pages a day, which I explained is way too much to even think about. I took the job because I needed the money, but at the end of the day 3, we were so far behind, and they told me that they would have to replace me with someone faster. My question, how would you deal with such production to be able to move super fast? Thanks a lot. Well, if I needed the money and they said they had to do 15 pages in a day, I would just become a cameraman and turn the camera on, right? Because you know what sort of production you're signing up for. If someone is believing that they're going to do 15 pages and it's going to be some beautiful cinematic thing, I would probably, like you did, argue your point and say, listen, we're probably, there's just not enough time to get good looking stuff. But if I needed the cash, I'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah, we can do that. Well, yeah, let's do it. We can make it look fantastic. And then I probably just flick on the camera and let it roll and say, yep, we're ready, and count my cash until I got a job that I didn't hate. So I would want to get out of that situation as fast as I could. But the easiest thing to do if you want to move faster is just do less stuff with the lighting, right? And I know, right? You're saying, well, that's not what I got into. I wanted to make it look fantastic. Sometimes you can't do that. You got to bite the bullet and say, well, fuck it. I'm going to get some money. So that's what I would do. And I wouldn't really approach it any different than you did. If you're trying to do a good job, you do a good job. If you're falling an hour behind, that's when I'd be like, well, do I ever want to work with these people again? Do I ever want to work with this director again? Because if I did, right, they're sort of the person or the producer that you have to mind and to keep in contact and to please when you're on set. So I'd go to the director and say, like, man, they're hosing us with these hours. You know that. Like, we could make this thing way better. But 15 pages a day, like, we're just spraying here. So I can only make it look so good. If we got 30 minutes, I could do this. If we don't have 30 minutes, we just turn on the cameras, right? You don't have to be a dick about it. You can fully explain your thought process to everyone, and then at least they know, well, This isn't the best that we could have seen, right? These are the limitations that are put in place by the production. And then with the producer, you say, I can't make this look any better with this amount of time. You say you want to shoot 15 pages? That's fine. This is what you get for 15 pages. If you want to shoot 9 pages or 7 pages, well, then we can start to make this thing look better. But what else have I got? That's all I got. Okay, let's look at some of the comments here. What do we got? Switch it up. Okay. We got, can something as light as an 8th glimmer glass be easily replicated in post? No, Handle. I have not seen an 8th glimmer glass because it only works around the highlights. Then you're talking about shot to shot trying to bloom the highlights, which is essentially raising the level just around the highlights, but then adding a gradation to that level, which is really hard. You're gonna have to track it to every single one. And I think you'll see in the reference document in a sec that I'll talk about specific examples where the glimmer glass actually comes into play. But you can, on Vimeo, there's tons and tons of glimmer glass tests by Tiffen or Schneider, whoever makes glimmer glass, where you can see the direct results. But no, I don't think you could do that. Leo says Glimmer versus Promise versus Black Magic. I've only ever used Glimmer and Black Promise, right? The BPM. Yes, John says there's tests. Bada Handle, joking. Near side key looks great. Great job, director. Looking killer. Is this near side key? I'm just looking straight at the thing. This is like, I don't know, 50-50 split. I would say this is looking straight down the barrel of the lens, not the best. Maybe if I angle like this. Now you're talking. Now this is a bit more Hollywood. Okay. Let's get into it, shall we? I think we've answered all the questions. Oh, no, we got one more. Here we go. Tyler, this is, does your small HD false color remap the clipping with the ISO on red? My OLED seems to shift black and white clipping when I change ISO on the red. I never use the false color inside of the small HD. I think it's dog shit, and I would not rely on it at all. I only use the stuff coming out of the Alexa, and then I guess that's not true, because when I shoot red, I do use the false color that I've programmed inside. So scratch what I just said. But I only send it the gamma that is coming out of the camera. I don't send it a log and then add a LUT. It just seems like, especially on smaller productions, the more variables that you add to the equation, the easier it's going to screw up. So I just send it whatever it was when I stopped red gamma 4 that I would be pumping out to people, to monitors and such. And then I want to view that same thing, because like we said, it's going to be the crunchiest, it's going to be the ugliest, and I want to be monitoring in that to make sure I'm not doing anything stupid. But no, it shouldn't. I don't know, should it? If it's ISO, it's remapping. Yeah, because it's at the end of the pipe. It shouldn't be matching if you're looking at the log, which I get what you're saying. But no, I would say switch to the gamma and view that instead of using your own light. Okay, that's it for questions. Let's get into what we got here. This thing. Okay, so here is the idea, right? We're looking at a bunch of people. They are in a bedroom, and we're looking at various families and various people, and they're sleeping in their little beds. And this is the whole sequence, right? All of this stuff is happening at night, so that's going to give you an idea of the level that we should be going for. And I'll just walk you through these scenarios. So we've got this woman, she's sleeping here. Husband comes in and sits down on this side of the bed, and she wakes up, right? Not happy. Then we've got a family of 4 sleeping here, and as we pull back with the camera, we reveal this dog sitting at the end of the bed. Then we've got this college kid in this sort of a dorm room setup where we're looking straight down with the camera, and the camera tracks to the left and reveals this disgusting floor that's full of stuff. And finally, for this section, we've got this, we open up on this guy walking, sleepwalking with his eyes closed, with his shirt off. We cut to the reverse angle, and we see that he's naked and he's wandering around his apartment. That's it. The brief that we got was, it's nighttime. Let's make it dark. This isn't a brand that typically embraces dark, so we're going to have to sell it. But this is, we're shooting in a house that hasn't been lived in yet. It's brand new. This is the very first location, and we're essentially redressing. We're using this house like a studio. So we're redressing every single room in the house, trying to make things work. On location, always difficult, well, for a few different reasons, but limited by ceiling height, what we can clamp to the ceiling, what we can get away with just out of shot from above. So that's going to be something we're going to look at. And then the wall color, right? We don't have the budget or the money to be painting walls, so we're not going to be doing that. And then what else we got here? We got this is from the location scout. This is me and filling in for the naked dude, and we'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, let's come back here. So the very first thing I'm thinking, right, if it's going to be dark, let's look at some of the references actually. Here we go. So lighting references, this is just for the vibe that we're going for, set the mood, the overall tone, right? Really warm practicals and really cool outside exteriors. So we got practicals everywhere. Practical, floor standing lamps, desk standing lamps. This is a tremendous amount of haze, a tremendous amount. But you see, this is sort of the level and the vibe, right? And I sent this document through just so on the day they wouldn't shit themselves when they saw just how dark we were going to be making this thing. And you'll see a couple of these people have been on the podcast where these images have come from. This one's, what is that, Jeremy Rouse. This one's Khalid. This one's John Chema. This one is Chase Irving. This one is Ari Wegner. This one is Nicholas Johansson, Chase Irving. So you start to see these things pop up. Khalid again. This one, I can't remember. And this one, I think, is, I can't remember who this is. But anyway, that's the overall vibe. And this image sort of sums it all up, right? We're going to be using shears. This is like a daytime look as opposed to a nighttime look. But we're going to be using shears a lot. We're going to be using big, soft light from outside. We're going to be using warm, super warm tungsten inside. So that now that you've seen the vibe, let's just get this thing back. Okay, let's do. Let's start with this one. Okay, so we've got this woman. She's laying in bed, and we come in here. Whoops. Come in here for a little look-see. Very first thing that we're thinking is, where's the light going to be coming from, right? If it's nighttime, where is the light going to be coming from? We have to have some sort of source somewhere in the frame to get some exposure. You can either go full night, where you only light from the window. Say you set the camera to 4400 Kelvin. You bring in the moonlight at daylight color, and then it's a little bit blue. You got 4400 inside, it's all dark. But you got to figure out where that's going to come from, and it's all based on location, right? So very first idea that would pop to mind for this one would be, you could have out here, you got window on this side that you cannot see. You got practical in the background, which we can turn on, right? Because it makes sense that the husband is not in bed yet, so he would have this practical on. So you'd have warmth coming through here. We know, oops, that's white. We got warmth coming from this thing, and it's spraying out. We don't need anything else there. The other good thing about this is the actual location. So I know this ahead of time because these storyboards were drawn to the location. So even though we don't have photos of this one, just know that this is the exact location. So lighting points here. We got warm coming out of here, which we'll just put, a tungsten bulb on a dimmer, and then we'll dim it way, way down to get some nice warmth. We're working with master primes, so we'll probably be shooting wide open. So this will be probably like a 27 or a 32 millimeter, and this will be super blobby. Like, he'll be a blob back here. All the focus will be up front with our gal. So got warmth coming from that. Then what other things can we do to add some layers, right? The very first thing that we got to think about is background. Like, what do we need back here to add some depth? We don't want it to be just all black. We want there to be some level, just a hint of level, to add to that sense that there is some space and some three-dimensional qualities to this room. So we're gonna practical, or not practical, movie light, probably like a light mat or something that's color matched to the tungsten inside this little room back here. I don't know if you can see that. But inside that room, we're going to do something to just add some edge. And the idea being that as our boy comes out of that door, he gets lit up by whatever's in there and he walks into this warm tungsten light and we're able to see that he exists. So what we're looking for there is, come in here a little bit more. So on our man, we're looking key on this side. We'll just draw it in. Key on that side, edge from whatever's coming through that window or coming through that door behind him. And that's it, right? We want to keep this side. We want to keep that side down. So we don't want anything hitting him from that window. And that's important because when we come to the lighting the girl, we're going to have to get some, right? We don't want to be blasting level this way at her. We're going to want to come with a level from over here. So to do that, we're going to probably have to block it off from hitting him, right? Because we're in this little tiny room, light's probably going to go everywhere. The walls in this entire location are white, which don't really help us because that's going to be bouncing stuff everywhere. And if we're wide open, chances are we're probably going to have like a 0.6 in there. So just so you get an idea of the exact levels that we're looking at. What program do you use to draw these storyboards? I don't. These are drawn by a storyboard artist. I just brought them into Photoshop so I could show you guys. Okay, so we know that we're going to keep that side of him dark. Let's talk about our talent, where all the focus is going to be. You got two ideas. Number one, you can key from outside, this window key like we just talked about. That would hit this side of her face, leaving the other side in shadow. That would be kind of cool, right? I don't know if you'd be able to see her exact reaction, but it would be nice. It would be dimmed down. It would sort of be, I'm thinking, in the same vein as, let's go to our references. There are we, like this shot here, something like that, right? Where we get probably the exact opposite in terms of color though, where we'd be looking at blue coming from that shot, but it's nice, right? You got that little hint of ambient light, of blue ambient in this shot, and then you've got that warm tungsten. We'd go the opposite. So we'd go blue coming through and a little bit of tungsten ambient overall. So that's one approach. And that's probably not the approach that we'll go with just based on discussions with the director. That was first thoughts. Next thought would be, why don't we stick a book in this lady's hand just here, and then we'll have a practical just here, which matches this one. And then we're going to get warm light emanating from here. It's, oops, why is that always white? Should be yellow. We'll get warm light emanating out of here, and that'll be hitting her, sort of filling her in there. And you don't get, we're not going to get the same quality, the same sort of definition in the shadows, but the trick will be not bringing the practical lamp too far around this way so that it fills in her whole face, right? You're gonna want to try and get it as over that way as possible so that it gets cut off by the pillow and adds just, you know, this dark, 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 and then just a hint of warmth on the top of the head. So that's what we would be going for in this shot. And then from there, it's about adding haze, and you'll get the effect of the glimmer glass in the practical here and in the outline of the door. And let's go take a quick look if we can see any glimmer glass. This isn't glimmer glass down here, but that's like haze. Haze and glimmer glass essentially giving off the same effect. I'm not sure if John used any, but let's see. Oh, I know that Jeremy did, so we can say here. Whoops. You can see just around this light source. I mean, it's really hard to see, but hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. Shouldn't be too unfamiliar to you. Okay, so that's shot number one, right? We've sort of got that sorted. Same shot over here. The only thing that we're going to do now as we go in for the close-up is just pretty this up. So now that we don't see the practical, whereas here you sort of see the edge of this practical down here. You know, you sort of see that edge, and then you're may see the lampshade. Here, we're so close that we're not going to see that. So then we'll probably lift the lampshade up a little bit, get it over this pillow, and try and get some downward shape here, some shadow in this area, and then maybe, who knows, I'm just thinking now, because this is going to be so low that it won't actually hit our gal over here. So maybe we just come in over the top here. If I come in with the red or the purple. Yeah, why not purple? come in over the top, maybe like a little light matte, one of those 2 L's, and we just subtly add a super warm glow here just to etch her out, right? So then you've got the tungsten, you've got the warmer tungsten from behind, and that way, you know, you can mix it up. You can just get varying degrees of tungsten. Maybe we add a little bit of blue. Maybe that's what this purple light is. Maybe it's blue light instead. Maybe it's just to add a little bit of color contrast. Maybe, actually, now that I think about it, what we'll probably end up doing is in this back door, we don't make it tungsten, right? Whatever's coming through there, we probably, to add a little bit of color contrast, we'll probably make it blue or bluer, if you will. And then, of course, we got the moonlight pouring in. Always going to have a little bit of moonlight at play. Okay, next shot is, next setup is actually in this particular room. So when we come into this location, where can we put the bed? Where can we put the action? And what are we going to do in here? What's going to make it easiest for us? My first thought always would be to get the window to that side, right? Rather than having the bed here and having moonlight pouring in over the top of people. I wouldn't think that. I'd think, well, we want to be able to see this, right? Because this is a window to the outside world, and that gives it that depth. We can see outside, make the set seem a little bit bigger than it actually is. So why don't we put the headboard here? We'll have the bed coming out this way, and we'll be shooting this direction. So hopefully we get some offshoot of the window, depending on how far we decide to pull the bed out away from the wall. And then when we're looking down, well, very similar to this shot, which we've talked about before. This was done for another commercial, but this is a morning look. We're going to be doing a nighttime look. But you see how you see a shoot off here. And I think this shot would be better if there was a little bit more depth here. If you had that window there, something to look at, it would be more interesting. We've already, done this shot before. So when we come back to here, all right, we're looking down the line at the parents, and the way this storyboard is drawn, we're a little bit on top. But if we just come down a little bit on the camera and we're looking more scraping along the people, as long as you can see all 4 people, right? That's what the director and that's what the client are going to be concerned about. They want to make sure that they see all of the individual people. Nobody's face is getting cut off or anything like that. As long as you're high enough to see everybody, or you can prop them up on, I don't know, like little pillows or something, some way to elevate the angle so that the camera can then lower, we'll be able to offshoot into this window, right? So the camera would be here, we're looking this way, and there you go. We're shooting down the line. Again, haze. And now this time, because this is all we're shooting during the day, this is all going to be tinted out here. We're going to tint it, but you're not going to tint it right against, well, you don't tint right against the window, right? You tint it, so the tint extends way past the window. So that gives us about 15 feet outside of this window, which we can place a lamp out here, and then we can probably put it through an 8x8, and then we're going to have different colored curtains here. We're going to have shears on the curtains, so the curtains will keep the window, keep this light, this moonlight, will be kept off of this wall by the heavier curtains. Then the shears add this element of interest. Where are you, shears shot? It adds this element of interest, you know? And the same thing could happen here. You could have curtains here, and then that would be cutting off the light there. You know, it just helps you. We've talked about it many times. It just helps you shape a little bit easier. So we'll do that. And what else do we need to know? So if we go back to the boards, if we look at the shot, this will be flipped. So instead of shooting left, we're going to be shooting the opposite way. And then once you get there, you'll have window light raking across everybody's face, and we'll probably contain it to give us some interest. We may be a little bit wider than this, so we can see the wall a little bit easier. And as we pull back, because this is a dolly move, we're dollying back to reveal this dog at the end of the bed. So we'll definitely see more of the room when we do that. And that's where the haze comes in, and that's where, you know, just ever so slightly around the shears, we're going to get that blooming of the glimmer glass. So at least that's what I'm hoping for. So that's this shot in a nutshell, right? Probably, and you don't need a whole lot of level outside of this window. Like this is probably, we probably aren't even going to have a generator for this job. You don't need much level out here. It could probably be like, you know, 2 Image 80s out here. And I say Image 80s as opposed to 4 Bankinos because it's just better to have that much set up, just in case the director goes, well, why don't we shoot this off speed? well, then we've got those extra, that extra level if we need it. And then this will probably be pumped through, yeah, I would say like an 8x8 or a 12x12 for both of them, and then split them with some cutters, and then, yeah, keeping it off the wall with those curtains. So that's what we'd be doing for outside. And then say we pull back to the end of the dog shot, right? We pull back here and we're seeing too much window. And the window, in order to get exposure here on their faces, the window seems too bright, right? And you don't want that. You don't want the window to seem bright on a night interior. That's like a dead giveaway that there's some trickery going on. The moonlight can't be like a giant street light. So to get around that, we will probably kill the level on the Kinos, right? Take it way, way down. If the camera's now, back here by the time the dolly move finishes and the dog is sort of laying here this way, if we kill the level out here and we dim it down to make it look believable, then we're not going to be able to get level on the people. So we're going to have to fix that. And the way that you would fix that is probably like a menace arm in here, which would then take out a light mat like a 4 or a 2L. And that light mat would probably extend further than that. It's probably going to go up like that, over like that, ching, 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 ching. And then that, as long as you get the angle right, it would probably be like somewhere in here. That is then going to project this way, above the window, above the frame, again, because we're framing for widescreen, so you can be quite low in the frame. And you just do the move, and you see, okay, when's the highest point that we see? There it is. So instead of putting it there, we just, put it up a little bit higher. And you angle that with a little grid on it to hit just the faces, just to light them up. And we've had a few different episodes on getting this look and making sure that the exposure is right. So you guys should all be across that. Okay, so that's that one, right? Nothing really to think about in terms of, like, as you're doing the briefing, as I'm talking about this stuff tomorrow, things to look out for, just making sure that the grips have enough time to be able to black the entire house out, making sure that there's enough space between the blacks and the window that we can get the fixtures that we need outside, plus the frames, plus the textiles, all of that stuff. And then just talking it over with art department, making sure that we have everything in the frame that we need, keeping it simple. Why do I keep spotlighting? And, maybe have like a practical over here that isn't turned on, or maybe have a practical over here, just something to keep the frame interesting and get the bed high enough to where it looks believable in the track back. So that's that particular shot. Now, inside of the same room, what's going to happen is, because there's only, I think there's 6 rooms or something in this house, and we're shooting in all 6 of them, but we need to turn a few of them over multiple times. That's what we're doing for this next shot. So now we're looking top down, if we're looking directly down at our man. And so if he's sleeping, like this, there's only so many places, if you're the camera, that we can come with the light, because we can't come with it, and you wouldn't want to come with it directly down on the person, because the rig, the bed is, again, this direction, perfectly drawn to perspective. If the bed is there, and the rig for the camera is probably going to have to be on some sort of stand here, and then some sort of stand here. That's going to go up, and then it's going to come over the top of the bed, and then here is going to sit the camera. Right? And this is our man down here, and the camera's going to track this way. Or probably track that way towards the light, towards the night light. So again, we'd have the same setup. We wouldn't have to move any of the Kinos, which makes it a super easy switch. We don't have to do anything crazy outside. So that's all stays the same. Shears stay the same because we're never going to see them, right? And we can still use their diffusing qualities. We can still use those with the shears. I'm showing you the wrong thing. Okay. Did you get that? I was talking to myself that whole time. Damn it. Switch camera angles. So this is what I was drawing the whole time you were just looking at me talking. Rig, bed, camera's going to be going this particular direction because we want to go towards the light. So as we come back here, right, this will be flipped in for the on the day itself. So the camera will be tracking left to right. We'll have moonlight coming in through here, hitting his face, moonlight, moonlight, as we track all this stuff is going to be edged in moonlight, and that'll be the entire shot, right? And what's going to probably happen is we'll need to get the moonlight. Where are we at here? We'll need to get the moonlight from this window. We're going to have to get it all the way to his face, make the exposure nice, and then we're going to get way closer to the window, and we don't want the exposure to change too much. And that's where using like a smaller lamp won't be as effective, because then we'll have to have the lamp very close to the window, and as we get closer to the window when we do the track, the exposure is going to increase. So we want to be further away from the window, like the moonlight. That way we don't get any exposure changes as we track left, and this stuff doesn't get super hot. If it does get hotter, all we have to do is just place some cutters inside the room to feather. Like if you had like a little stand here with a little cutter or a little net, that way as we track this way, the ground isn't getting exponentially hotter because the light is being cut by this little flag here. So that's the plan in this room. All moonlight, no added stuff. Okay, let's go to the sleepwalking scene. Sleepwalking, this is fairly easy, right? This is the room. It's sort of like a studio / apartment setup. There's a big window over here. We've got this nice little frame that we set up where we can have light coming from in the wide shot. We'll probably dress in some practicals, either like a bulb, like a Quasar 2-foot, or a Quasar 2-foot there, just for, again, I mean, we know we got the Glimmerglass thing, we might as well bloom the highlights everywhere that we can, and just have it set really, really low, like just a hint of level. And then again, we'll probably use some color contrast in here, so make this like a blue, and then up here, I would imagine above the frame, because this is not widescreen, right? We'd be looking more like this. Above the frame, we'll probably have like a light mat sort of shining towards the camera, backlighting this man as he's walking towards the camera. And then we have to have something, because it's a PG commercial, to cover up the naked guy. We'll have to use some bedpost or something like that, right? So that'll be the setup for this particular shot. Oops. So that's the setup for this shot. The room doesn't look anything like that. You just saw it. We'll have moonlight coming in this way. So moonlight blue, tungsten, like a light that's happening up here. That'll be coming from the light mat, just giving our little man the edge. Then like a night light, like the level in that back window should be super, super low, like night light low. I don't know why a grown man living in a studio would have a night light, but it would just make it interesting. Or we fake, which is probably better now that I think about it, or we just put moonlight in through the bathroom window, you know? So this level blue and this level blue are the same. The color contrast comes from the tungsten unit above the frame. And then inside the frame, we've got really, really dimmed tubes or something that fits in. You know, I don't know if you'd have like a practical here, like this thing, you know, just like that little, where am I pointing here? That thing. In the background, you just have that sitting on the desk, and it's pointing towards the camera, giving us this nice little haze effect. And then haze, of course. Haze is just going to lift the overall ambience, so you're not shooting in complete dark. And that's the plan. For this version of it, we just have moonlight coming through this way, and then you get that tungsten backlight coming from whatever lamp is overhead, right, from the light mat, or whatever else we put up there. So we want this bright, we want this dark, maybe practical back here next to the bed, like a desk lamp that may be able to give us an edge. If we can't get that, then maybe we go, like I said, from above with that light mat and try and get the edge behind him, and then get this side as dark as we can, get it really moonlighty. And then once you come to this cut, you've got that nice contrast between the color. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you go on location, get the photos, and then come up with some sort of plan so that you don't shit the bed. Hopefully, I haven't checked, but hopefully the internet did not shit itself during this broadcast, if you will. If you guys have got questions about the process, best to let me know now so that I can answer them. If not, it's been fun. And let's see, actually, because I'm going to go on this tech scout tomorrow, and chances are there's going to be some issue. We're not going to be able to get the hazer. We're not going to be able to black out all the rooms, or something's going to happen. But this should hopefully give you an insight as to the process at the very beginning, exactly what we're going to be going for. So, okay. Any questions? What do we got here? This one's from Blue 4 Delta. In the past, you've mentioned having several businesses in addition to being a cinematographer. Could you do a podcast on how you stay organized? I am not organized at all. I just came in here and turned on the camera. It was like, shit, I got this live stream to do. I have no organization at all. Yes, there are multiple businesses, none of which, except for the ones that my wife looks after, are at all organized. My calendar, thankfully, in Australia, they have a booking service, so at least my cinematography stuff, I know well in advance, 3 or 4 weeks out, what days I'm going to be shooting and when exactly it's going to get busy. But for the rest of the stuff, no, it's a complete crapshoot. Okay. Already answered that one. Blah, blah, blah. That's it. No more questions. Thanks for watching, and let's see if I stay true to my word. I can almost predict what's going to happen now. Is I'm going to get there on the day, and I'm going to look at the glimmer glass and be like, sort of looks like shit. Like, let's take the glimmer glass away. But I'm going to try my best not to. The big fight will be making sure that we get those levels that I talked about. Making sure we get this darkness, I don't know if they're going to go for it. But ideally, like, this is daytime. But, this is a great mood, right? You got that blue coming in. You got that warm tungsteny look. That's a nice little setup, right? It looks a little bit horror film. I don't know if you would, if you were buying a bed, if that would work. But there's some stuff in here that we can work with. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we will see you, or you'll hear from me in the next podcast. That's it. Ta-da.